The house on 2nd Street was too quiet. It was early morning in Villisca, Iowa, and the sun was just starting to rise. Birds should have been loud. Kids should have been running. But instead, the air felt heavy, like the whole town was holding its breath. A neighbor named Lena Stillinger stood at the front door of the white farmhouse. She knocked once, then twice. No answer. Lena tried to smile like it was nothing. Maybe they're sleeping in, she whispered to herself. But something was wrong. She could feel it in her stomach. A few feet away, another neighbor, Ross Moore, shifted his weight. He had come because Lena was worried. The Moore family had heard strange things too, little worries that didn't make sense alone, but felt scary together. Lena reached for the doorknob. It was locked. Ross leaned in. "The bacon should be cooking by now," he said quietly. "Josiah always wakes up early." Lena stepped back and looked at the windows. The curtains were pulled. The house looked like it was hiding. Ross tried the back door. Locked. Then he saw it. Something small that made his face go pale. An axe. Not in the shed. Not by the barn. But close enough to notice, like it had been moved and left behind in the wrong place. Ross swallowed hard. He didn't want to say what he was thinking. Lena's voice shook. "Ross!" Why won't anyone answer? Ross didn't answer. He walked to the front porch again and peered inside through a glass panel. It was dim in there. Too dim for a family that usually started their day early. He lifted his hand to knock one more time. And then, inside the house, something creaked. Not a normal house creak. A slow, careful sound like a footstep. Ross froze. Lena froze. Someone was inside. Ross's heart began to hammer. "Lena! Step back," he whispered. Lena did. Her hands trembled. Ross didn't know if the sound was real, or if fear was playing tricks on his mind. But he knew one thing. If someone was inside that house, it wasn't safe to stand on the porch. He turned and ran toward the sheriff's office. And as he ran, Lena stayed behind, staring at the house, feeling like the windows were staring back. She didn't know it yet, but this would become one of the most chilling cold cases in America, the Villisca Axe Murders. And the scariest part was this. If someone really was inside, were they still there now? Now, let's go back to the beginning. Before the silence, before the fear, before the town changed forever. Villisca was a small town where people knew each other. Most doors didn't even need locks. Folks waved from porches. Kids rode bikes down quiet streets. Everybody talked about everybody, and most secrets didn't stay secret for long. The Moore family was well known. Josiah Moore worked hard and was respected. His wife, Sarah Moore, was kind and steady. Their children were lively and full of energy. The family wasn't rich, but they were doing okay, and people thought they had a good life. On June 9th, 1912, it was a normal Sunday. The town went to church. Neighbors greeted each other. The Moore children had friends, and everyone was looking forward to summer. That evening, the Moores visited church events like many families did. The children laughed and talked. The adults chatted with neighbors. Nothing about the night seemed special. But sometimes the scariest nights start like any other. Later, after the church activities, the family headed home. It was dark outside and the town was quiet again. 2 young guests were also staying over that night. Lena and Ina Stillinger, sisters who were friends with the Moore children. Sleepovers were common. Parents trusted the town. So, that night, there were 8 people in the Moore house. 8 people, all under one roof, thinking they were safe. Inside, the house settled into the sounds of bedtime. Soft footsteps, doors closing, a lamp turned low. The family climbed into bed. The Stillinger girls got ready in the guest room. Somewhere outside, a night breeze moved through the trees. The world looked normal. But in the dark, something else was happening. Someone, quiet, careful, and patient, came close to the house. No one heard a loud crash. No one screamed for help that the neighbors remember hearing. The town slept on, not knowing anything was wrong. Hours passed. The sky slowly turned from black to gray. Morning came. And that's when small things started to feel strange. The Moore house didn't open up like it usually did. No one went out to feed animals. No one stepped outside for fresh air. No smoke rose from the kitchen like normal breakfast time. People noticed. At first, they made excuses. Maybe they're tired, someone said. Maybe they left early, someone else guessed. But the longer the morning went on, the heavier the worry became. That's when Lena Stillinger, the neighbor, not the girl, walked over and knocked. That's when Rossmore came too. That's when they tried the doors and got no answer. And that's when Ross ran for the sheriff. As Ross pounded down the street, the town was still waking up. People were still drinking coffee, still sweeping porches, still thinking it was just another day. Ross burst into the sheriff's office, breathing hard. "Something's wrong at Josiah Moore's house," he said. The sheriff grabbed his hat and stood up fast. They hurried back toward 2nd Street, and when they reached the front porch, the house was still silent. So silent it felt like it was hiding a secret too big for the town to carry. The sheriff lifted his hand to the door. He paused. Then he stepped closer and began to enter the Moore house. The sheriff's name was Hank Wilkins. He had seen hard things before, but as he stepped onto the Moore family porch, he felt something he couldn't explain, like the house was warning him to stay out. Rossmore stood behind him, breathing fast. Lena Stillinger stood off to the side, her hands pressed together like she was praying without words. Sheriff Wilkins tried the door again. Locked. He looked at Ross. "Do you have a key?" Ross shook his head. "No, sir. I knew something was wrong." The sheriff nodded, then walked to a window. He cupped his hands around his eyes and peered in. The room inside was dim and still. No movement, no sound, not even the little signs of mourning. No open curtains, no dishes, no footsteps. He turned back to the small group that had gathered. "Everyone stay back," he ordered. Someone found a way in. In a small town, people didn't think twice about helping, and that was part of the problem. Too many curious eyes. Too many footsteps. Too many people wanting answers right now. The sheriff finally got the door open. It opened slowly, like it didn't want to. The air inside was stale. The house felt colder than the warm June morning outside. Sheriff Wilkins stepped in first. He kept his voice calm, but it sounded tight. "More family," he called. No answer. He moved carefully through the front room. Everything looked normal, in a strange way. Furniture where it should be. A quiet table. The kind of quiet that felt wrong because it wasn't peaceful. It was empty. Ross stood at the doorway, shaking. "Do you see them?" The sheriff didn't answer yet. He just listened. Then he heard it again. A faint creak from somewhere deeper in the house. Sheriff Wilkins froze. His hand went toward his belt, toward the comfort of something familiar. He didn't want to believe someone was still inside, but the sound felt real. "Hello?" He called again, louder this time. Silence. He moved forward, one step at a time. His boots made small thuds on the wooden floor. In the hallway, he noticed something odd. Some of the windows looked covered, like someone had tried to block the view from outside. That wasn't normal for a family that welcomed daylight. He took a breath and kept going. Then he reached the first closed door. He paused, listening. He could hear nothing. Not breathing. Not movement. Not a whisper. He opened the door just a crack. What he saw made his face go pale. He shut the door quickly and stepped back, swallowing hard. His heart pounded like a drum in his chest. He didn't shout. He didn't panic. He did something else. He turned around and walked fast back to the front room. Ross stepped forward. "Sheriff, what is it?" The sheriff's voice was low. "Go outside. Now." Ross didn't move. He looked stuck in place. The sheriff repeated it, stronger. "Ross, get out of the house." Ross finally stumbled backward, almost tripping over the porch step as he went. Lena Stillinger saw his face and covered her mouth. Sheriff Wilkins stepped outside and raised his hand to stop the crowd from coming closer. "Nobody goes in," he said firmly. "Not one person. You understand me?" But in a small town, rules sometimes arrive too late. Some people had already stepped inside earlier, just for a second, just to help. And now, if this became a serious investigation, that could matter. The sheriff sent someone to call for more law enforcement help. He sent another person to fetch the town doctor. Then he did the hardest thing. He went back inside. This time, he moved faster, but still careful. He checked the rooms without describing what he saw out loud. His job was to protect the scene, to protect the truth, and also to protect the town from hearing something they weren't ready for. When the doctor arrived, he entered with the sheriff. They spoke in quiet voices. Outside, neighbors stood in the street like statues, waiting for a sentence that would change everything. Finally, the sheriff returned to porch. His face looked older than it had an hour ago. It's very bad, he said. Go home. All of you. Please. Some people didn't listen. They stayed, staring, as if their eyes could pull the answers out of the walls. News traveled fast. By midday, Villisca didn't feel like the same town anymore. Whispered rumors spread like smoke. People said the Moore family was gone. People said the Stillinger girls were gone. People said a killer had done it. And one word kept repeating, because it was a word someone saw near the house. Axe. Soon, investigators began arriving from nearby places. They asked questions right away. Who last saw the family? Who walked past the house last night? Did anyone hear anything? The answers were frustrating. No, not really. Nothing unusual. It was like the killer had moved like a shadow. Inside the house, officials tried to figure out what happened and when. They looked for forced entry. They looked for missing items. They looked for a clear reason. But nothing made sense. There was no loud fight anyone remembered hearing. No warning signs. No note left behind. Just a quiet home turned into a mystery. Then an investigator noticed something that made his stomach drop. The axe they had seen earlier, near the property, didn't look like it came from where it should have been stored. And it didn't look like it had been sitting outside for days. It looked recently used. That meant the killer might not have traveled far. That meant the killer might have been close. Maybe a stranger passing through, or maybe someone the town already knew. The sheriff gathered the men helping him. We're treating this like a manhunt, he said. We need names. We need suspects. We need to know who was near this house last night. And then, just as the afternoon heat rose, a new, terrifying message arrived. Something a neighbor claimed to have seen before dawn. A dark figure leaving the area, walking calmly away from the Moore house. Not running. Not hiding. Walking like they had all the time in the world. If someone walked away that morning, who were they and where did they go next? The dark figure walking away from the Moore house before sunrise became the most important clue in Villisca, but it was also the most frustrating. No one could say exactly who it was. The neighbor who saw the figure only caught a glimpse through sleepy eyes. He said the person looked like a man. He said the man walked calmly, not fast, not slow. He said the man did not look back. That detail scared everyone. Why wouldn't he look back? Sheriff Hank Wilkins organized search parties right away. Men rode horses down dusty roads. Others checked train stations. They questioned travelers. They asked about strangers who had passed through town. In a small place like Villisca, strangers stood out. But the days went by and no one was caught. The town changed quickly. Doors that once stayed unlocked were now shut tight at night. Parents kept children close. Every creak in the dark made people sit up in bed. At first, investigators believed the killer might be someone passing through. A traveler, a drifter, someone who came and left before sunrise. But then rumors began to grow. Some people whispered that it had to be someone local, someone who knew the house, someone who knew how the family lived. Because whoever entered that house moved quietly, carefully. They did not rush. They did not panic. That made it worse. Detectives from outside towns joined the case. They brought notebooks, cameras, and new questions. They studied the home. They studied footprints. They studied the axe itself. The axe had come from inside the house. That meant the killer did not bring a weapon. That meant the killer had confidence. Weeks turned into months. Suspects came and went. One man who had been in town the night before was arrested, then released. Another man who had a strange past was questioned for hours. Some townspeople even pointed fingers at people they once trusted. Friends stopped talking. Neighbors avoided eye contact. Fear can break a town faster than truth can fix it. Newspapers across America picked up the story. They called it shocking. They called it horrifying. They called it one of the worst crimes in Iowa history. But the words that stuck the most were these: the Villisca Axe Murders. And soon after, another phrase followed it: unsolved. Years passed. Trials were held. One suspect was even brought to court. People filled the room, desperate for answers. They listened closely to every witness. But something was missing: clear proof. Without strong evidence, the case fell apart in court. The suspect was released. The town felt crushed all over again. The killer had slipped away. As time moved forward, new detectives reopened the case again and again. They studied old files. They read witness statements from 1912. They searched for mistakes made in the early investigation. One problem stood out clearly. Too many people had entered the house that first morning. In their shock and fear, neighbors had walked in and out before the scene was secured. Footprints were mixed together. Clues were disturbed. Important details may have been lost forever. Back in 1912, crime scene rules were not as strong as they are today. Investigators did not have the tools we now use. No DNA testing, no modern forensics, no cameras everywhere. That made this case even harder. Every few years, someone would claim they knew who did it. A book would be written. A theory would spread. Some believed it was a traveling criminal. Others believed it was someone with a personal grudge. A few believed it was connected to other axe crimes that happened in nearby states. But none of those ideas could be proven. The house itself still stands in Villisca. People visit it. Some go because they are curious. Some go because they want to understand what happened. The rooms look small. The ceilings are low. It feels like an ordinary home. That is what makes it so chilling. An ordinary house. An ordinary town. One terrible night. Today, more than 100 years later, the Villisca Axe Murders remain one of America's most chilling cold cases. No one was ever officially convicted. No final answer was ever given. The dark figure seen walking away that morning was never clearly identified. The footprints faded. The suspects aged and passed away. Witnesses grew old, and the truth slipped further into the shadows. But one question still hangs in the air like the silence that morning on 2nd Street. Was the killer a stranger passing through town? Or was he someone who lived close enough to wave hello during the day? That question is why this case still haunts America. Because somewhere in the pages of old reports and forgotten memories, the answer might still be waiting. And until it is found, the Villisca Axe Murders will remain exactly what history calls them: America's most chilling cold case.